So I have been using Omarchy now for almost a year. And yes, I have been using literally Omarchy from almost the day it came out. Right before Omarchy, I was using Omakub for a few months. And before that, I was using Arch as my OS for about 2 years, along with Mac, of course, because of my work. Now, Omarchy has been one of the best things that I've done, and this is a ThinkPad. But however, let me just show you quickly my current spec. Right before this, I was using an Asus Zephyrus G16. I've done videos on G16 about Omarchy as well, so you can check that out. I downgraded, kind of, right? This one doesn't have the 4050 that had an RTX 4000 series graphics card. This one has an ADA 500, which I'd keep off. So I'm always using it on an integrated mode, right? And I use NV control for that. So this is my spec, and this is more than enough for me, especially with the battery backup, because with Zephyrus, one, it was a 16-inch laptop that was pretty tough. I can play around with this a little bit more, and at the same time, it's lighter, it's smaller. The screen I feel is a little bit better, although both are 3K screens. But with that being said, the battery backup really allows me to kind of move around with this and do a lot of stuff. So a couple of things. I just wrapped up my master's in data science and machine learning. I work as a TTM engineer. I am in AI security and governance. So I do a lot of reading around AI security and those kind of things. So I use this laptop as my primary learning machine, more or less. And then for gaming stuff, I've got the PC, and for work, of course, that's a Mac. I just started a couple of days ago learning Rust. So that's one big thing, and I'm doing it through Code Crafters. I'm also doing the backend track on boot.dev. So I'm using this machine primarily for those couple of things. And I use GPT to help me code, or rather come up with answers. So for example, with the Rust, rather than going through the syntax first, because I have gone through Python, I've gone through JS, I play around with APIs in anyways. Rather than going through syntax, what I did was I just dove right into the actual project. And once I had that project going, I set up my GPT as a Socratic teacher. So it will never really give me a fixed answer. It will guide me towards one direction, and I'll go from there, right? So that works really well. I have got a couple of agents running on this laptop as well. None of these are like really coding agents. One is kind of a life management agent that logs what I'm doing, what I'm working, and I ask it to. It doesn't automatically do that. I have not connected it to any email, any messaging service, nothing of that sorts, right? And again, I work in AI security and governance, so I'm very strict with where I give access and kind of how much access I give. But for this one, for example, I can tell it like, all right, please log like 20 minutes of coding or 1 hour of coding Rust and XYZ, and then it will log those and build my Obsidian page, which I'll show you in a quick second. Then I've got another agent that's called Research, and this is on top of Hermes. And this agent, specifically Research one, helps me based on my 6 month and 9 month goals to find a reading list. Now, when I say reading list, it goes out, finds like good reputed blogs, and then specific articles that fit my current goals, the projects I'm currently doing, all of those things, helps me sift through those, set up an order to those on how to, in what order to read those, as well as research papers. So how that looks on my Obsidian, for example, is this. So this is based on the projects that I want to build in the next 6 to 9 months. It's helped me set up, and there's a lot of back and forth that goes to actually coming up to this conclusion. But for example, I've got a couple of prompt injection and a couple of like AI security related research papers that I use Zotero for reading. And then there are a few different articles that would help me understand computer systems much better, because I'm doing backend, because I want to touch on systems programming. It will help, like these readings would help me come back to there, and then I go back into benchmarking, specifically benchmarking from a red teaming perspective when it comes to LLMs, right? So all of this goes on this machine, and this also helps me set up kind of my effort tracking. So let's say, for example, on a daily basis, my effort logs are tracked as well. So when I tell the agent, this one, like for example, please log 20 minutes of coding through boot.dev, function programming, enums, some types, union types, right? So it will log all of that to Obsidian as well. And another thing that happens is every day at 9 p.m. without the agent, because I didn't want to run my tokens every single time, without the agent, a cron job runs. If my laptop is on, it makes a complete backup of all the profiles of this agent to my GitHub in a private repository, as well as it makes a backup of my Obsidian vault. So if I want to pull something up on my Mac, if I want to pull something up on my PC, I am still able to do that because everything is backed up to my GitHub as well. And then I use an app called Zotero. That's a research app, and I've been using this for more than 2 years, especially through my master's, for a lot of research papers, etc. And now I'm using this for security research papers, etc. And this is like, for example, the research paper that we had in Obsidian, which fits well. So I use a feed called Blog Watcher on through Hermes that I use to add different blog links, or rather different blogs. So for example, I'm a big fan of Netflix engineering blog, so I've got that added as well. But I also get GPT, and this is GPT 5.5 by the way, to help me figure those out as well. I've tried this with local models as well, but because the GPU isn't that great, the RAM is slightly limited, 32 gigs, but still limited because the GPU is limited. I'm not able to run local agents that are slightly bigger in size very well. So that's something that's a work in progress for me. I do want to try like smaller models and see how they compare as an agent, but for the time being, yes. And as you can see, this one runs 5.5, but my kind of daily manager thing runs in a 5.4 point of rather 5.4 mini, right? GPT 5.4 mini. And then another thing that I've done here is I've modified the theme through the program that comes built in into Omarchy, that's called Aether. And by the way, I do use NVim as well. So most of the stuff on this is default minus a few things. As you can see, I've adjusted the borders. I had adjusted animations. I was using similar animation and similar to Mac animations, which I've done a video on as well, but I've just removed those for the time being, and I'm using Aether to modify the theme. So what I've done is I've pulled this background of a free pick, and what I've done is I've taken the color theme. So on Aether, if you add a wallpaper, there's on bottom right on Aether's UI, you can see a button called extract. If you click extract, it extracts the color theme of that wallpaper. So I can use that wallpaper or that color, specific color theme, as the base color theme. And my coding color theme, however, is slightly different. My coding color theme, guys, is rose pine, which I'm one of the kind of a big fan of. Rose pine works for me very, very well. Let me actually do something here quick. As you can see, right? So yeah, I like the yellows and the pinks and the greens. So I really like rose pine for the coding environment, and I like whatever this color theme is, blues and pinks and purples for what I do on a daily basis. And that's all, guys. I have set up a fingerprint scanner, but most of the times one of the problems with Omarchy is it doesn't recognize the fingerprint, or it says the scanner has been disconnected. If I'm using Hibernate, which I do most of the times, I don't turn things off. I usually restart it like once in a while. The tabs are restorable, so that's fine if I do that still, but I don't do that very often. So that's how I'm using this laptop, and that's how specifically I'm using Omarchy, and that's how I've been using Omarchy for a year now since it's come out. Tell me how you are using your Omarchy. What's your core use case of Omarchy? Because I'm in love with this quote unquote distro, quote unquote script, quote unquote. You are not a real Arch user because you're using Omarchy, so you can't say I use Arch by the way. Yes, I use Arch by the way. Yes. All right, I'll see you guys next time.